Hello. Have you ever wondered how you can improve your self-esteem and overcome limiting beliefs? Well, we have someone here that's going to help answer those questions and much more. Hello, this is Vincent
and Valerie
Woodard. And on this episode of Couples Pursuit,
we're going to talk about improving self-esteem and overcoming limited beliefs.
We have a special guest with us.
Yes.
It's Keana Mitchell. How you doing?
Hello. Keana. Welcome. We're going to tell you a little bit about Keana. And then we're going to let her tell you a little bit more about herself. Keana W Mitchell is a relationship coach and podcaster who helps women work on their self-esteem and overcome their limiting beliefs so that they can have the relationships that they desire. In addition to being a relationship coach and podcaster, Keana is also a singer, songwriter who has a master's degree in counseling psychology with a concentration in rehabilitation. For the past 10 years, Keana has worked as a job coach and a rehabilitation counselor for the state of Alabama. Today, Keana offers a wide range of programs and services, which include the 3-day Marriage Bootcamp and her signature program, Improve Your Marriage While Improving Yourself.
Wow.
That is great. Later, we're going to give you some information about how to contact Keana, but welcome to Couples Pursuit Live. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay, well, how much do you want to know? Because there's quite a lot I can tell you.
Let it rip.
Hey.
Okay, well.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Keana W Mitchell. The W stands for Williams because that used to be my maiden name. And when I got married, I kind of wanted to keep something. So I just kept my maiden name. Yeah, so that's one thing. And yeah, I've been working ever since I can remember, like since I was a kid. I don't know. It's like I loved reading about marriage. I love reading about relationships. I would be that nerdy kid who's looking in the encyclopedia, reading about relationships, or even when I got older as a teenager and I had a job, I read books about it. It was just something about relationships and things that just interested me. And so I would just read about it. So that also helped with what I'm doing now because it just grew. Like I got married. After I got married, I was thinking life was gonna be happily ever after because, that's just the thing you see on Disney and all those cute little movies. Cinderella found her Prince Charming and Sleeping Beauty got kissed by the prince. They were so happy. But, that didn't quite happen because no one ever told you that you have to work on stuff and that you have to compromise and that you have to forgive and that no one told you about all the hard work that goes into being married. So for years, like my husband and I, we struggled back and forth and everything. It was not fun. And then one day we both, it's just not fun. And then one day we're just like, you know what? He's not changing. And he's like, she's not changing. So we're just like, we just gonna work on ourselves. Like, we're just gonna let them do whatever they want to do. And we just gonna work on ourselves. And once we started to do that, we saw that things got better and things improved. Now, of course, my marriage isn't perfect. I'd lie if I told you it was. I think all couples have things that they deal with. Those same issues that keep coming up and can never resolve. I just think that's part of being married, part of life. But we learn how to make things work and how to just accept each other by just like, you know what, I'm just going to work on me. That's pretty much what we decided to do.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Wow.
And look, before we dive deep into this world-saving stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, increasing self-esteem and overcoming limited beliefs, I read something on your bio and I was like, interesting. So you are, you sing and you're a songwriter?
I do. And that's kind of how I got into podcasting because ever since I was younger, in addition to that, I always wanted to be a singer. I didn't even want to go to college. I was just like, I'm just going to sing. But my mom was like, okay, Keana, listen. She said, I know you want to be a singer. I don't want you to be a starving artist. So you got to do something. She's like, so either you go to college and you can live here rent free and I'll pay your car payment, or you don't go to college and you get a job and you got to help me out with rent and you have to pay your car payment. Wow. And I knew at that time the job that I had was not enough to pay anything. And I was not trying to work like hard and have to start doing all that. So I was like, okay, let me buy myself some time. So then I was like, I'll go to college, but I don't plan on paying attention. I'll make decent enough grades, but I'm going to sing, so it really doesn't matter. But I went to college because it's like, there's no way I could afford to pay rent or car payment. Like, I knew that was not possible. So I went to college, and at first I majored in speech pathology, but then realized I did not like that. It was not for me. So then I was in school for like 3 years when I realized that. And then I was like, okay, what will take the credits that I have? And it turned out it was criminal justice.
Wow.
So I went and I got a bachelor's in criminal justice. And then after that, like years later, I decided to go get a master's in counseling psychology. But I have always wanted to be a singer, and that was the whole thing. So after I got my degree and everything, I got married, I started singing again, writing songs. And then I was trying to figure out, like, how am I going to get my songs out there? What am I going to do? And that is when I thought about podcasting. So I was like, yeah, I was like, oh, wow, I can have a show called the Written by Podcast and tell people why I write the songs. Wow. Now, that's a great idea. Yeah. But, I kind of think you need to be famous for that to happen, because like nobody knew of me, and I had my 30 faithful listeners, and to this day I'm grateful for them. But like 10 episodes in, I'm just like, I'm not growing. It's still the same 30 people. And I was kind of running out of content because I was writing songs all the time, but like I realized my motivation came from the same place. It was all about relationships, like relationship issues, relationship drama. It wasn't like I had some happy songs, but they were all like relationship issue kind of songs, like songs people would listen to if they were going through something. And I mean, how many times can you be on a podcast and say, well, I wrote this song because I saw a show and it reminded me of a relationship problem, or I heard a song and I was thinking about a relationship problem. Like, there's only so many episodes of that you have. Like, after the first 3 episodes, you're like, okay, we get it. There's a relationship problem. So that whole thing, I realized it wasn't sustainable. So I stopped podcasting for a while. And then another thing about that show is like the name, no one would get it. I would have to pronounce it too many times. And so I was like, if I had to keep telling people it's the Written by Podcast, they're like, huh, what? I was like, maybe I need to rebrand, because this is not going to work. It's not sustainable. So what I did was I took like 3 months or 6 months off, right? And I thought about it. I was like, okay, so what do you write about? And I was like, you write love songs. I was like, okay, what do you like to read about? I was like, I like to read about relationships. I like to read books about it. And then I was like, okay, so why don't I do a podcast? But the focus is not music right now. The focus is about talking about relationships. And then you can put one of your songs in that deals with that topic. So that is how I came up with, at the time it was called Music and Vibes. But then like last year, I kind of rebranded it again and I called it Music and Therapy, because someone pointed out, they're like, Keana, they're like, we like your name, Music and Vibes. We love the logo. They're like, but it doesn't say what you do. They're like, this is a relationship podcast. So you may want, they're like, have you ever thought about changing the name? And I was like, no, I haven't. They're like, you should do that. They say you have a degree, you have a master's. They're like, you have an education, you have background in this. They're like, you're given a lot of value. They're like, you should change your name. So then we talked about it. And then after a while, I came up with the name Music and Therapy with relationship coach Keana W Mitchell. So that is how it went through like several stages, but that's how I got to the podcast that I have now.
Oh, that is awesome. Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great, that your goal is to help people with improving their self-esteem and overcoming limiting beliefs. So what are some of the strategies that you have for women on how to do that?
The first strategy I have, and I think is like a core foundation, is looking at yourself. Like, find out what your triggers are, because so many times it's like we react to things. And I know most of the time, if you look at any argument, it's reaction. You're reacting to something someone did. So if as women, we can look and say, okay, why are we reacting this way? What is this triggering? Why are we doing this? Because so many times we don't realize it, but there are a lot of things that make up us. There's like your childhood, if there was any trauma, if you saw a positive relationship modeled for you or not. It's just so much that go into it. And if you don't know why you're reacting the way you're reacting, then you're not going to be able to fix anything, because you don't know what to do. So the first thing I just tell people is like, okay, so we need to figure out why are you feeling this way? And I like to let people know that when you get angry, it's just a symptom of something else, because a lot of times anger is like that best friend you never knew you had. It's the easy place to go. You don't have to feel any emotion behind it. You don't have to feel anything. It's just like anger.
It's like the catch-all bucket for your feelings, right?
It is, and it makes you feel good and you feel powerful because you're angry. You feel like you're in control. You can do something. But if you actually took time to say, why am I angry? Most of the time it's because you're hurt or you feel disrespected or it's something deeper. It's just the default emotion that we go to most of the time. So that is why we work on like finding out what your triggers are, find out why you're angry, because you might not be angry at all. You could just be hurt. And if you're hurt, then you need to talk about why you're hurt and how somebody's actions made you feel, rather than I'm mad, you're a piece of crap, I hate you. You need to figure out what is the core of this problem. And I think once you figure out what the core of the problem is, then you can talk rationally. You can have some idea of what you guys want to talk about instead of screaming at each other because you're both mad, because that never works.
Right. That's so good. We just finished talking about we talked about the subject of loneliness, but it's like in the way that some people respond to each other. Right. Anger may be the first emotion, but there's always something under anger. Yes. Anger covers. Exactly. Anger is a carrier for another emotion.
Exactly.
There are times to be angry, but in relationships, we really that shouldn't be the thing that we lead with.
Yeah. And I think you can always tell, because it's like if someone just blows up like out of nowhere and they take anger to another level, because it's normal to be angry. But if you are angry about something that occurred, like somebody hits your car, that's a normal reaction to anger. Or maybe your kids like messed up your phone, normal reaction to anger. But if you and your spouse are having a conversation and then he mentions something or she mentions something and then you blow up, that's a sign that wait. Yeah. That reaction is an overreaction to what just happened. It's not appropriate for that response. So that should let you know that, hey, there is something going on. And if you're the person who had that sudden burst of anger and it just came out of nowhere, then that's why you should just ask yourself, like, okay, why am I getting angry? What is making me feel this way? So you can get to the core of what's going on.
Yeah, so those limiting beliefs you spoke about earlier, we talked about a whole bunch of them, but some of the core ones that you discuss on your podcast and also when you talk with the women or just with couples in general, like what are some of like the core things we have to overcome to even get to the point where we can build up our self-esteem? Like what are those things that we're telling ourselves that we can't do?
Oh, I love that. I just did a podcast episode on it this week. It's like we're telling ourselves we can't do it. Like you may say, well, I can't make and you may not even say it, but like if you grew up in a home where your parents were divorced, separated, or something happened, you may think you can't have a good marriage, or that you won't find anyone to love you, or that if your marriage is on the rocks and you're going through a rough time, that I can't make it work, it's not going to work out. It's like your mind believes what you tell it. So if you are telling it these things, then of course you're not going to make it work. It's not going to happen. And I think sometimes we lean too heavily like on divorce, like, well, if it doesn't work out, then I can just get a divorce, or I can do this. Now, I do think divorce has its place. Like if someone is in a physically abusive relationship or mentally abusive thing, I think any relationship where you're being hurt physically or emotionally, you have to get out. Like I can't find any justification to stay. Now, if you want to work on it, you got to work on it apart and make sure those actions can never happen again. But that would be a time I say, yeah, you should probably just let it go. But that depends on the person. But if it's like a relationship and things are just hard and you're growing apart, I think that if both individuals took divorce off the table and be like, okay, so we're not going to talk about it, that's not a backup plan, and then move forward and try to work on things, it would be a lot better. And so that is why I just say the things you tell yourself and what you believe about your marriage is true. What you believe about your spouse is true based on your perception. So if you think that your husband's a slob or he's a jerk, then that's how you're going to view him. And if you think your wife, and if you think your wife is lazy or nagging or whatever, then your perception becomes your reality. So it's all about your mind and what you believe. And it takes a lot of working on yourself, understanding why you see your partner the way you do, and then working on reframing and changing the way you view your spouse.
That's good. Yeah. Also, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, as far as the abuse, and there are places where you have to remove yourself. I think the key thing to remember is that no adult deserves to be disciplined by another adult.
Exactly.
No, I shouldn't discipline my spouse. She shouldn't have to discipline me to get a point across. You know, exactly. we're at a place right now, we're grown, she better talk about it, but sometimes we can use anger as a form of, I'm gonna get her, I'm going to get her, I'm going to get him.
I'm going to put him or her in their place, or I'm going to protect myself by shutting them out. I'm going to protect myself by being angry. You know, I'm going to protect myself by making sure they don't continue to question me, because I'm not ready to confront where I am, how I am, who I am, or I don't know who I am and why I am the way that I am. And something you said before, you said, you know, it's like if we believe whatever it is about ourselves or our spouse, then that's what you perpetuate, because we build what we believe, right? And that's not just what we believe about other people. It's not just what we have said to ourselves, but it's also what are the things that have been said to us. Well, marriage sucks. Marriage doesn't work. Women are, you know, nags. A woman, a wife is a ball and chain. A man is a dog. A man is never faithful. Exactly. If you come into it with that, then you will believe that. That's how you set the bar for your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's true. And that's why it's important to kind of look at your parents' marriage, see what worked, what didn't work. And if it didn't work, then you need to understand why it didn't work. I would even say, if your parents are alive, talk to them, find out why it didn't work, what happened. Because if you don't, then you have a chance of repeating that. And the crazy thing about it is, like, sometimes we don't even know why we're doing what we're doing. We're just following the example that we saw, and we don't always realize what's happening until it's a little too late.
That is so good. That is so good.
Because there's a former pastor said to us one time, he gave us the scenario of the roast, right? The way we cook roast at our house is we cut off a little bit off one end and one off another end. And that's how you cook it. And so down the line, that's how everybody did it. And no one ever asked why they did it that way.
Right.
Well, the reason why they did it that way is because grandma had a small roasting pan. And the roast couldn't fit in the pan. So you continue to waste and to do things in a way that you were taught, whether she told you to do it or you just saw her do it that way. You adapted yourself to that. And it wasn't necessary. And it's a funny scenario. It's a food scenario, but it's the same way. Well, I saw my dad talk to my mom like that, or I never saw my mom and dad kiss or hug or show affection. So it's like, why does this woman want me to touch her, kiss her, you know, say sweet words to her? That's not what my parents did.
And it's a belief. It's something that you've been trained in, knowingly or unknowingly. Something that you raise up throughout the generations, and it's you kind of took on the persona of, well, like my wife said, this is the way they done it. I've always been told, and here you go. Now you're trying to bring that into your marriage, and your spouse is like, wait a minute, no, that's not my belief. My belief, we should be open, we should be able to talk, we should be able to share, we should be able to be intimate, and not only when you're feeling good, it's it's the other things that you're not feeling or that you are feeling that you don't want to share. We should still be able to have those intimate interactions with each other. So overcoming those limits and beliefs is so powerful.
It is. And also another thing, and I'd love to know your opinion about this. If you did have parents who had a successful marriage, right? And you come into relationship with your spouse, expecting your spouse to be as your mother or father was, that's limiting as well.
It is, because it's like, maybe your parents had a successful relationship, but that doesn't mean that your spouse parents did. And it doesn't mean that that's what they were taught. I mean, we come from different places, different backgrounds. And even think about it, even people who grew up in the same house have a different experience. So it's like crazy to think that your spouse is going to have the same experience you had, even if you have similar backgrounds, because that's just not how it works out. And it's just based on who they are. Maybe that's just not them. Like, maybe that's just not their love language. And that's not how they express love. So you have to take all these things into consideration and be accepting of whoever you have, because you can't change them and you should just accept them.
Now you touched on something a little while ago where you talked about, you know, you and your spouse having difficulty and you decided that you should work on yourself. And one of the things you mentioned, one of the programs that you have is entitled Improve Your Marriage While Improving Yourself.
Yes.
Is that the thing that pushed you to foster this program, the experience you had within your own marriage?
Yes, because I realized that, like, me focusing all my time and attention on what I thought he wasn't doing was actually holding me back, because it's like I was getting mad, I was frustrated, I wasn't practicing self-care because I was just too pissed at him. So I mean, it was just like a cycle over and over and over. And I was like, I need to get off this cycle. So what I started to do was just take care of myself, focus on me. Of course, I was nice, I was kind, I still did all those things, but then it made me realize, okay, Keana, maybe you're not the easiest person to live with, and you can hold a grudge. And even though you may say it's not your fault, but you did like argue when you did join in an argument.
You related to the problem.
It's like we have to admit that no matter what we do, we like are half the problem. Like if someone wants to argue, if you just don't argue with them and walk away, then there's no argument. Like all the things we do with our spouse, like they can't do alone. So if we join in, regardless of what you might think about them, it's like you're part of the problem too. So if you work on yourself and fix that problem, then it's like you fix half the problem already. So
you have less time to argue, less time to be disagreeable. And then that gives them time to breathe also and really be introspective and look at themselves and see, you know what, she didn't answer me back this time. So instead of me being ready to fight or argue or disagree with her, be combative or defensive, now I get to sit and think about the fact that I need to work on me too.
And the self-esteem that you talked about earlier, how sometimes we can carry our version of who we think we are, who we see ourselves as in our relationship. Now, if we don't have a great self-esteem value within ourselves, then that carries over also. So when your spouse does something like not really touch you when he comes in the house or she comes in the house, or not really say hello, then that could be something kind of residual thing that where people didn't speak to you, when they were mad at you, or your parents used withdrawal as their emotions as punishment for you, so now here's your spouse doing the same thing, and so you have low self-esteem in certain areas that we bring into this marriage, and then your spouse does something in their eyes it's like
harmless.
It's harmless. It's not really I don't think it was that serious, but it's like one of the biggest things for you, because
it's the triggers you talked about in the beginning.
I was thinking about what Hoppo said. It's really out of context, but Whoopi said. No, was Hoppo said? Not Hoppo. Oprah said my daddy didn't even beat me.
Oh yeah, Miss Celie.
Like, my daddy didn't even touch me, And it's like, here's my husband, being unaffectionate to me, and you already are kind of you're dealing with that area of trying to heal from that, and now we're in a new relationship, and we're having to build up our self-esteem, overcome limited beliefs, and be this man or woman for our spouse. You talk more about that.
Please. This image that they have created in their minds, because that is a thing as well. We have an idea of who our husband or wife should be, and then our husband or wife don't have any idea that that's who you expect me to be. That's how you expect. Well, I'm not built like that. I don't work that way. So that can become counterproductive.
We need some tact, Keana. Some things that we can do. We can take and build upon this, and also share with others, like my wife said, like some tact, some roll up our sleeves. That's what I do right here. What are some things that we can do, that we can take home right now, we can start working on right now?
The first thing I would say is drop all your expectations, like leave them alone, because the person that you thought you had and made up in your mind that's who you're going to marry. That's not who you marry. You marry the man or woman that you have. So drop those expectations and get to know them for who they are. Get to accept them. Because once you do that, you will see a lot of your resentment for them will probably go away, because you're trying to make them live up to something that you never even told them about, but that was your vision of a mate. Wow. And so if you drop those expectations, then that would be the first thing I would say. Next, I would say forgive anything that you think they've done wrong to you. Because if you can't forgive them, you're just holding a grudge, and then any little thing they do is just like, see, they did this, they did that. And it's almost like a list of memories that you have negative things about them, and they can't even live it down. Like, forgive it, let it go, just drop it. And then the third thing that I would say is to make sure that every day you think of one or two things positive. Because there's a lot of negative, and we all feed off of negative. You know that it's easy to see the negative and point that out. But what about the positive? Like, there has to be something positive about your spouse. So the more you practice saying a couple of positive things to them or thinking a couple of positive things about them, the happier you would be with them, because you're like, oh, they're not so bad. Oh, he did this or she did that. And you'll begin to notice like the things you noticed at the very beginning when y'all fell in love. So those are the three main things I would say you can start doing now.
Yeah. That is good advice. Before you leave us, I know we're probably getting close to time, but I would love for you to share what your 3-day marriage boot camp entails. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I absolutely can. So the 3-day marriage boot camp is a weekend. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's at 6 o'clock. And what we do is pretty much I go over the first 3 lessons of my course, of my program, because I think those are the foundations. Like, even if you did not take the rest of the course or anything, if you have those 3 foundations, then you can at least begin to do the work. You can at least begin to change something, to start to see some improvement, because that is what I think a lot of people need. It's like, people don't want to hear, all the things that they could do or whatever. They need something to work for them now. And so the 3 things we talk about is identifying your triggers, understanding yourself and why you feel this way. Because once you understand that, you can communicate that to someone in a rational way that they can understand. And then we talk about self-esteem, because I do think that sometimes people have low self-esteem, so they take whatever. And instead of having like a higher expectation, like, I think that, how can I put it? I think we teach people how to treat us. So if we have a low self-esteem and somebody, let's say that your husband or wife never washed the dishes because they know you're just going to come behind them and pick it up. And you keep doing it over and over and over again, but yet you're mad and you're resentful. But you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I cleaning up behind them? And once you figure out why you're doing it, and then that would help you to have a conversation like, listen, I love you, but I can't keep cleaning up the dishes. We both work. What if I did it this day, you do it that day? But it will help you figure it out. But if you don't understand that you don't deserve to have to do this every day and be the only person cleaning up behind somebody, and you don't have the courage to say anything because you don't want to make your spouse mad, or what if he or she will leave me or whatever, then your self-esteem issue is letting someone walk all over you. And I'm not saying that your spouse is a bad person, because if someone's always washing dishes for me, then I'm not going to think about washing them because I know they're going to get done. It's just how we are, So if you can't speak up and talk about things, then I feel that it's never going to get resolved. And I think sometimes low self-esteem and being afraid of being alone or making someone mad or that they'll leave you hinders people from actually saying how they're feeling, and stop couples from working on things that they need to work with, or even having conversations they need to have because of fear of being alone or being left or abandoned.
Dude, this is so good. When we get to around that 30-minute mark of an episode, I'm like, man, wow, there's so much more to talk about. We have to unpack. So that lets us know we have to have you back so we can talk about more. But look, before we go though, is there any, we talked about a lot and you gave us so many nuggets. My wife is not just looking, she's looking down, she's writing. She's just like, jotting notes. She loves
taking Keana notes.
She loves to jot notes. But is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't get to today? Is there something that we might have left out that you say, well, I want to make sure they got this?
yes, the one thing I want to make sure everyone gets is that you have to take care of yourself. I don't think you can have a successful marriage if you let yourself go. And when I say that, I'm not talking about looks. I'm not talking about clothes. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. But you have to be emotionally healthy. And sometimes we get into relationships, we stop thinking about what we like, our hobbies, our goals, who we are as people, and we just feed off of who our spouse is, and we lose ourselves. So the point is, you have to find yourself, rediscover who you are, what you like, because if you can do that, then you're going to be a better partner, because you're going to be happy. You're going to be satisfied with yourself. If you want to exercise for cardio purposes, just to be healthy, just do some things for you, because if you do that and take care of your mental health and you take care of yourself, then you'll be a better spouse, you'll be a better mom, father, like whatever it is, you'll be better because you are healthy.
I think
that's great.
That is a topic.
That's awesome.
Emotional fitness, emotional health.
Yeah.
Health. What would you say? Emotional health.
Emotionally healthy. Yeah.
Yes. That is. I like that. Emotional health. I want to say emotional fitness. That sounds like a really good.
It's a good guy word.
Yeah, it is.
But that lends itself to the fantasy or the fallacy that rather that someone completes you.
Right, exactly.
You come into a relationship whole and not half. Yes. I need all of him, not half of him.
Right. It's true.
It does not work.
Give all of you.
That gets us halfway there.
Yes.
Yeah.
We said we're going to drop the link to your website. We're going to do that in the comments. But how can the people get in touch with you other than the website?
And your podcast. Yeah, tell us all your outlets.
Okay, so I'm on Spotify, and I'm easy to find. If you just put in music and therapy with relationship coach, by the time you get there, Keana W Mitchell should pop up, because there's no other podcast with that title. So it's it's music and therapy with relationship coach Keana W Mitchell. So that's one podcast. I do have another podcast called Finding God Podcast, and that just talks about how people find God. So that's there too. If you just type that in, you can find that. I have a website, of course, KeanaWMitchell.club, because I'm doing a lot of things, and everything that I'm doing is there. So there you go with that. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook on Instagram, you can find me as Anique. And then on Facebook, you can find me as either Keana W Mitchell or Keana Mitchell, or you can just go to Music and Therapy. I have a Facebook group and a page. So
that is awesome. And we can get in touch with you about the 3-day, was it a workshop?
3-day marriage
boot camp. By going to the website, we can get information for that also.
You can, but I can also send you the sales page, and I can see the information, and you can get that as well.
Okay.
We just want to make sure we articulate the website for listeners also. It is www.KeanawMitchell.club. Correct?
Yes. Correct. Okay. Yes.
That is good. That is good. Well, I hope that you learned something today. Thank you so much for joining this Couples Pursuit Live. We love conversations like these. We love to meet people like Keana. We love just to hear the wealth in the short amount of time that we had, and to be able to pass that along. It was such a great interview. Thank you so much for dropping by, Keana.
We appreciate
Thank you for having me.
And look, if you learned something from this episode today, please leave a comment. Let us know. And if you have a message or something that you say, hey, Keana, keep it going. Yay, we want to root her. We want to keep cheering her on. Let us know. We'll pass it along to her. So,
if you have questions also, we thank you again, Keana. May the Lord bless you. May He keep you. Make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you and give you peace. Till next time on Couples Pursuit Live.
Bye.
Bye-bye.